Good morning. So whenever I get a question more than one time, it means that there is a video to be made, and so that is what we're going to do today. So a question that I've been getting a lot about this product after purchase is how do I add my own tasks? Because I have about, I want to say 17 that are in here to get you started. And I do have a video going over how to customize those tasks and change the dates. As in, you can just, anything that's in green, you can just write over this and write what you need it to say. You can also change the days here, and that will change what the due date is. So if your acceptance date is the 2nd and you want it one day after your acceptance date, then it will automatically say that it's the 3rd. So what I want to do today is go ahead and add a roughly 10 filler tasks that are going to be essentially empty, and they'll be able to be customized as soon as you purchase. So if you've already purchased, then you'll be able to see how to do that here if you haven't done so already. And if you haven't, then by the time you do, these will already exist. So I usually just show how to do things once they've already been completed, but today I'm going to go over actually how the behind the scenes process works, just so you are familiar with it. So what I'm going to do is basically just screenshot these formulas here, and you can use Notion AI for this. I don't, I use Notion AI for other things, but I do not use it for this because I just tend to find that it's easier for me to work with ChatGPT to write formulas. In my other video, I do go over how you can write these manually, though I will tell you that it will take a lot longer. So I want to keep all of this the same, but I just want to add about 10 more empty tasks. And just as a refresher, how this works is that this is a formula and it goes based on these task names, which are just page names. And as long as this matches this exactly and the dates that are needed, like the acceptance date or the listing date, are filled in, then those due dates are always going to populate. So, and the other most recent video I did was how to essentially just use the button that is set up in the template now. So once we make these changes, in order for them to populate with the rest of the tasks, you will need to add them to the button. So I will show you how to do that. However, I'm not going to add them because then you would have a bunch of blank tasks populating when you get the product, and that would just kind of be kind of messy. So I'm just going to screenshot this. I recently did this on my French product, so I translated this whole product into French, which was a whole lot of work, and I just was wondering why I don't have it in this product, so I think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to add these in. Oops. Oh my gosh, it's hard to type when people are watching. Oh goodness. So with Notion, it's kind of like light coding, and that is why you don't want to have to do this yourself, or you can if you like it. So you have all these parentheses here, and I don't know, honestly, anything about coding, so I'm sure that these are called something other than parentheses, or parentheses, but you want to make sure that there is the correct number, otherwise the formula doesn't work. So I usually do this with ChatGPT, and then I usually will have to go through and change like one or two things. So I'm just going to make sure these are being acknowledged. Yeah, so you can never add anything after those because that is like the period on the sentence. The sentence has ended. So let me just look at this first. Yeah, they're always pretty much good to go. Sometimes I have to remove a few things. Very exciting. Okay, so I'm going to copy that and let me make sure there's 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we are going to copy these on here. What I'm going to do actually is that property visibility. I'm going to make this visible for a second. And I'm going to duplicate this because I'd rather make a mess on something that doesn't matter. So now we have the exact same, it'll all be exactly the same. The only thing that changed is this one here. So now I am going to, you can't really press enter the same way, like to start a new one. Yeah, see. So when it looks like this, that means everything is exactly it's supposed to be. So it is probably going to turn red after I paste this. And usually that means that there's not enough. So I'm just gonna keep adding them until that goes away. See? Okay, so I added 10 parentheses. And now it works. So you have to, from what I've seen, you have to pretty much have a parentheses for each task that you are adding here. And these do look a little different, which doesn't really matter, but I really like this clean look. So I'm going to send this and ask it to write it in that same way. Oops. The style is called ifs. Oh, ifs. So this is totally just an aesthetic thing, and I just think it's easier to read, especially for people who are not so familiar with Notion. So I'm just going to do this again. Duplicate the first one again, except it should say 1. We'll be able to tell. Let me see which one is the new one. It should be this one. Okay, no, that is the original. Let's see this. This is the messy behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, so this is the original, and this is our version that we're editing. So now I'm going to, you can add a space, but you cannot hit enter. I'm going to copy the new sentence style one and see what happens. Oh, see, it still looks, it doesn't look how I want it. Okay. I think it's probably going to do the same thing that just happened. Okay, so I'm just gonna undo our paste and then paste again. And it turned out exactly the same. So I think typically I don't just add tasks in like this, I actually rewrite the whole formula at once. So I think what it is saying is that if I want them all to be in this style, then I would need to essentially redo the whole formula. Okay, so you have 2 listing tasks and 2 contract tasks. Okay. Okay, so now what we have to do, just to make sure that the new tasks work, because it's all green and good to go here, I think that it will work just fine. But what we want to do is basically custom closing task number 4. So let's just add that in to a transaction that is pending. Okay, so this has a closing date. Yep. Okay, let me make sure I see how this is written. Oops. Oh, I see. So it's in our new auto due date. And so in that case, okay, so it did work. We can see right there. So now I need to do what I just did, but in the actual formula that's already being used. That way I don't need to go through and redo any other formulas. So let me see here. So that's our new one. I just need to know which one I copied. I don't think it really changed anything, so I'm just going to use this one here. Okay, and then in auto due date, the actual property, I'm going to add a space, and then I'm going to paste, and then I'm going to add basically 10 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now it should be good to go. Okay. Okay, so as long as those match correct exactly, so what you want to see is that anything in the parentheses, you'll see here the name is always in the parentheses. So when you go through and make these your own tasks, you can change these numbers. You can change all of these. So what I recommend when you start using the product, you go through and see what your specific tasks that you need for each transaction are. Write those in a list, write it down, put them in order, and then go through and start adjusting these things. And the most important thing, so now that we have these in here, I think this will be really great for everybody. Now that we have these in here, the other thing that we need to do is go to the button, because that is how these get populated. So as long as this works, I'm going to go check this one that we edited and just make sure. Okay, so here you can see the auto due date populates, and the due date is the one that just makes it prettier. So we can now hide this. All we were checking was that when we put in the page name, the task name, it's going to populate. It's going to populate in our auto due date. So now we can hide this, and we can go ahead and delete this because we do not need that. And so you'll see down here, this is in your transaction, and oh, this is from my task manager. So this is in your transactions dashboard, and this is your transaction and task manager, which is what we're on here. So remember, these two work really closely together, and on every transaction page you're going to have the tasks at the bottom, which whenever you see this arrow, it's showing you a view of another database. So these are two separate databases. So what we want to do now, this is an old transaction, I can tell, because it doesn't have the buttons on this page, which was one of the recent updates that I made. So let me go to the actual transaction manager, and I'm going to choose one that has a later closing date, because I imagine that that's going to be a newer, yeah. So it has the buttons here. So you wouldn't want to change this because this is on an actual transaction page. You're going to want to change the one that exists in here. So you'll see that these are your buttons, and this is how the tasks populate on your transaction. So all it is, these are super simple, is that it matches everything exactly. So all I would do when you get into this, also the task template is just because I like having emojis by the task names. So if you want them all to look the same, otherwise it'll have an empty page. You can also change what the emoji is by going into the task template is actually going to be in the transaction task manager, so not in this page. But anyways, that's not super important. So now we're going to duplicate this, and all you're going to do really, so you need to decide if it's a pre-listing task, seller, buyer, or both. Like what is, oh, I have one right here, request review or testimonial, that's both. Update address and CRM, that's both. But for a buyer, you're just gonna order the home warranty or send them the utility email. A lot of them are both, to be honest. There's not a whole lot that are just for the buyer. But anyway, so now, right now, as it stands, if you did this, when you click the button, you would have two that were review, request review and testimonial. So what we would want to change this to is just the name. So we said closing, I think it was closing task number 4. Let me just double check. Oh, custom closing task number 4. So it just has to match exactly. So if you have any, if they're capitalized, then they need to stay capitalized. If there's any sort of, if if there's like a hashtag, a pound symbol, if there's a comma, whatever you have in there needs to be exact. Although I would say actually try to stay away from, I think it was apostrophes. It was either apostrophes or commas. One of them really interacts with the, like the formula, thinks it's part of the formula, and then it doesn't read as a task name. So I cannot remember which one it was. But there, you'll see, because it will suddenly not be green anymore. So that's pretty much it. I am going to delete this. You always want it to say this page. That is very important. And then you just want it to select what it is. So these are for your listings. These are for both, and seller would be for the seller checklist. Right now we're in buyer. Do not do a custom formula. Just don't do anything except what I'm showing you right here, because it is very simple and you do not need to make it more complicated than it already is. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Oh, and I think somebody asked before, you know, if you change this order. That doesn't really matter because they're going to be in the order that the dates appear. So what order they're in here doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this. Yeah, you can, I guess you can move it this way. And oh, that's how you just click these dots and duplicate it. So just use one that I've already made. Just make sure your buyer tasks are in the buyer template. So we're in the transaction dashboard, we're in the buyer checklist, and then we're in the button. So you just click the gear here. And then I'm just going to delete this one. So we didn't change anything. So everything else will remain the same. Someone has also asked if you move the order of these, what happens? Nothing. So yeah, you can move these in whatever order you need to see them in. So I'll just make sure you can see the seller one also. You can also change all these pictures if you don't like the ocean. I think I go over that a bunch of times, change cover. So same thing. You will need to do the buyers. You can either do two things. So if you don't have dual agency in your state, then you're really not going to need this at all. But one thing you could do, so you can duplicate these, the buttons. And so if you fixed the buyer one, or if you do have dual agency in your state and you fixed, you know, if you don't want to do the same work twice, you can duplicate it and just cut. I use it on my, if you have a Mac or I just do Command X, okay, and then I do Command V, okay, and now that would be the new one that you just did. Okay, so I just want to show you the seller one just so you know. So again, these are going to be all your seller tasks, so they're going to be pre-listing and your escrow tasks. So same thing, you would just click these dots and duplicate it, and obviously if you're doing one in the pre-listing, you can duplicate it up here and it'll put it here if you want them in a certain order. But I think that pretty much will cover it, because you're editing the buttons, and then as soon as you click the buttons, your new tasks will populate. And you can always go through, you can either delete everything that I have in here, all of the samples, because you don't really need them, or you can, I think that's probably the best way if all of your tasks are extremely different. Otherwise, like we saw earlier, you can always write more tasks on here. You can always write more on here, and as long as they match the formula, they will show up. So I think that that will pretty much cover it. I don't think there's going to be anything else for right now. So yeah, please leave a comment if you do have any questions, or if there's anything you want to know how to do, any questions that you have. I will see you on the next one. Bye.